only the weight of a man ready to risk everything. For the first time, she felt something stronger than fear. Choice. Slowly, she nodded. "Then I will stand with you." The commander's jaw relaxed, his eyes softening for just a breath. "Good. Then we begin tonight." Outside, the colony slept in silence, unaware of the storm forming within its walls, and the final choice. The night was restless inside the colony. The air carried a strange weight, as if the walls themselves knew something was about to break. Soldiers patrolled with sharper eyes. The brides whispered nervously in corners, and the red lights above flickered with unease. Inside her room, Liora waited. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the cold table. She had given her answer. To the commander, she would stand with him. But now, with silence all around, doubt gnawed at her heart. What if this is madness? What if we are crushed before we even begin? The door opened without warning. The commander entered, his face set with grim determination. His voice was low but steady. "It is time." Her breath caught. "What must we do?" He pulled a small device from his coat, its lights glowing faintly blue. "This will unlock the power grid. If we control the grid, the Council's eyes will go blind. Their surveillance will fail. Then we move against them before they can react." Liora's pulse raced. "And if they catch us?" His eyes met hers, sharp but calm. "Then we die free, not chained." Her heart pounded at the finality of his words. Yet she nodded, forcing courage to replace fear. "Then let us begin." They moved through the silent corridors like shadows. The commander knew every passage, every hidden path, avoiding patrols with sharp precision. Liora followed closely, her breath shallow, her senses burning with tension. At last they reached the central chamber of the colony. The room glowed with power, tall pillars of light, consoles blinking with endless data, and guards stationed at every corner. The hum of energy filled the air, a heartbeat of the entire fortress. The commander's hand brushed the weapon at his side. He looked at her once, his voice firm. "Stay behind me." But before they could move, the alarms blared again. Red light flooded the chamber. "Traitors!" a voice shouted. Soldiers swarmed in from every entrance, weapons raised. Liora froze, her heart slamming in her chest. They had been betrayed, someone had known, someone had told. The commander drew his weapon, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Stand down!" But the soldiers did not listen. They aimed, their eyes blazing with loyalty to the Council. The first shot rang out. The room exploded in fire and light. Sparks rained down as bullets struck metal. The commander pulled Liora down, shielding her as energy bolts tore through the air. "Run!" he shouted, but she could not leave him. She grabbed his arm instead, her voice breaking. "Not without you." Together they moved through the storm of fire, ducking behind the pillars. The commander fired with sharp precision, each shot striking true. But the soldiers kept coming. Liora's hands shook as she clutched the device, the only hope they carried. "Go to the core," he ordered. "Plug it into the console." Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself forward. She dashed across the chamber, the heat of fire burning past her. She reached the console, her fingers fumbling as she pressed the device into place. The machine lit up, sparks flying. Screens flickered, power surging wildly. Then suddenly the lights across the colony dimmed. The red alarms faltered. The surveillance systems blinked and went dark. Gasps echoed among the soldiers. For the first time, the Council's eye had gone blind. But the battle was not over. A soldier charged at her, weapon raised. Liora froze in terror, until the commander struck him down, his blade cutting swift through the chaos. He pulled her close, his voice rough with urgency. "We have one chance, choose now." Her eyes widened. "Choose what?" "Do we flee into the shadows," he said, "or do we stay and fight until the end?" The chamber shook with fire, the air thick with smoke. Liora's chest burned with fear, but also with something stronger, defiance. She looked into his eyes and saw the truth. He was ready to fall if it meant breaking the chains. And now, so was she. Her voice was steady. "We fight." The commander gave a sharp nod, pride flickering in his gaze. Then, with a roar that shook the chamber, he led the charge. Together, they moved like fire through the storm. Two figures standing against an army, bound not by chains, but by choice. The soldiers fell back, confusion breaking their discipline. Liora, once trembling in fear, now stood tall, her voice cutting through the chaos as she shouted to the brides who watched in silence from the shadows. "No more chains, no more silence. Stand with us." Her cry pierced the air, and for the first time the brides lifted their heads. One by one they stepped forward, joining the fight, their fear melting into fury. The chamber blazed with rebellion. Sparks, fire, and cries of freedom filled the air, and in that storm, Liora felt the chains break, not only around her, but around everyone who dared to rise. The battle raged on, but the outcome no longer mattered, for in choosing to fight she had already won. In that silence, two prisoners, one bound by duty, the other by deception, chose to break their chains. The forbidden truth. The memory of the hidden chamber would not leave Liora's mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the glowing star maps, the sharp lines of human control, and the commander's voice echoing. This is not peace. This is power. Her chest carried the weight of a truth she was never meant to know. The colony was not a sanctuary, but a cage. And she was not a bride, but a chain binding her people. The next days blurred into silence. Soldiers marched, machines hummed. The brides whispered among themselves in the hall. Yet Liora remained restless, her heart aching with questions. One night, as she lay awake on the cold bed, she heard a faint sound, like a whisper of air, soft and urgent. She sat up, listening. It was the vent again. "You must see for yourself," the voice said, low and hurried. Her blood ran cold. "Who are you?" she whispered back, but the voice did not answer. The vent fell silent once more. The next morning, when the guards escorted her to the dining hall, she noticed something strange. A side corridor stood unguarded, the lights flickering, dimly. She had never seen it open before. Her heart raced. Was this chance or a trap? She hesitated, then stepped away from the guards as if by accident. The soldiers barked at her, but she slipped quickly into the corridor before they could stop her. Darkness swallowed her. The air here was different. Dusty, heavy, filled with the smell of forgotten machines. She pressed forward, her hands brushing the walls. Her steps echoed softly. The corridor seemed endless until, finally, she reached another sealed door. The panel blinked faintly, half broken. To her surprise, it slid open at her touch. Inside was a room older than the rest of the colony. Broken lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across piles of documents, shattered screens, and storage crates. The place felt abandoned, forgotten, by time. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on a cracked console still glowing with life. She approached carefully and touched the screen. It flared to life, revealing files written in both human and alien languages. She scrolled through them, her heart pounding faster with every word she read. The truth unfolded before her. The marriages were never for peace. They were part of a system, an agreement between human commanders and the council of her world. Brides were offered not to unite, but to control. Each bride was placed in a colony not to be loved, but to be watched. They were insurance, leverage, to keep entire alien families loyal. Liora's hands trembled as she read further. This was not just her fate, it was the fate of countless women, traded like tokens in a game of power. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But her eyes caught one last file, sealed with the commander's insignia. Against her better judgment, she opened it. What she saw froze her blood. The file contained surveillance logs. Her name, Liora, was marked. Notes described her as unregistered, replacement, and potential threat. The commander had known from the beginning. He had known she was not the chosen bride. Her breath caught in her throat. He had chosen her anyway. The door behind her hissed open. She spun around, her heart in her mouth. The commander stood there, his figure filling the doorway, his eyes shadowed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with silence, heavier than any words. "You should not be here," he said at last, his voice calm but sharp as a blade. Liora's chest rose and fell rapidly. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew I was not the one chosen. You knew from the beginning." The commander stepped inside, the door sealing shut behind him. His eyes met, hers steady and cold. "Yes." Her knees weakened. "Why? Why would you choose me?" He studied her, his face unreadable. "Because lies reveal more truth than obedience ever will. You came here with a secret, and secrets can survive where fear cannot." Her hands clenched, at her sides. "I am not a soldier, I am not a leader, I am nothing but a mistake." His voice dropped lower, carrying weight and certainty. "No. You are the only one who still dares to see. The others have already surrendered. That is why I chose you." Her heart twisted. She wanted to believe him, but the files on the console burned in her memory. He had marked her as a threat. He had watched her from the beginning. Her voice shook. "Then why bring me here? Why show me this truth if it could destroy you?" For the first time, the commander's mask cracked. His jaw tightened and his eyes flickered with something human, something almost fragile. "Because I cannot fight this alone." The words stunned her. She searched his face, trying to find the man behind the iron uniform. Was he her enemy, or was he trapped just as she was? Could she trust him, or was this another layer of his game? Before she could answer, alarms blared through the colony. Red lights flashed across the walls, and a sharp voice cut through the silence. "Unauthorized access detected in Sector 9. The commander's expression hardened. He grabbed her, arm pulling her close. "Now you know too much," he said, "and that means there is no turning back." Her heart thundered as soldiers' boots echoed in the distance, drawing closer. The forbidden truth had been revealed, and it had already set her fate on fire. Breaking the chains, the alarm screamed through the colony, echoing down the steel corridors. Red lights flashed, painting the walls in pulses of danger. Liora's chest rose and fell quickly, her breath sharp as the commander pulled her away from the glowing console. Soldiers' footsteps thundered closer. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. Her mind spun. Why is he protecting me? Just moments ago she had discovered that he had known her secret all along. He had marked her as a threat, yet now as the alarms blared he shielded her as if her life mattered more than the orders of his own colony. The door burst open. Soldiers stormed in, weapons raised, their eyes wide with suspicion. The commander stood tall, blocking their view of her. "Unauthorized access," one soldier barked. "Who entered this room?" The commander's eyes were cold steel. "I did." The soldiers hesitated, exchanging confused glances. One dared to protest. "Sir, this sector is restricted." The commander's voice cut him like a blade. "Do you question me?" The soldier stiffened, silence falling like a stone. No one spoke again. With a sharp gesture, the commander dismissed them. They saluted, their boots striking in unison as they withdrew. The door sealed shut once more. Liora's legs trembled. She leaned against the console, her voice shaking. "You lied to them. You protected me." His gaze turned to her, steady but unreadable. "If they knew you were here, you would already be gone." Her hands clenched. "But why? Why save me, if to them I am only a threat?" For a long moment he did not answer. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Because I am a prisoner too." Liora's breath caught. The words she had heard before now sounded heavier, truer. She searched his face and saw a shadow there, a weight that even his iron discipline could not hide. "This colony," he continued, "is not mine to command. I follow orders from a council far above me. They watch every move, every choice. Even I cannot defy them forever. Her heart pounded. Then why did you choose me? His jaw tightened. Because I saw in you what I no longer see in myself. Defiance. The courage to resist, even when you are afraid. You remind me of what I once was. The word struck her deeply. For the first time, she saw not only the commander, but the man behind the uniform. A man bound by chains of duty, just as she was bound by chains of fear. The alarms faded, the colony returning to its heavy silence. But the truth between them remained louder than any sound. That night, she could not rest. Her mind turned endlessly. She was trapped, but so was he. Could they truly fight this system together? Or was this another test, another trap laid by his hand? The next morning, the answer began to form. When the guards brought her to the hall, whispers ran among the soldiers. Tension filled the air, sharp as knives. Some looked at her with open suspicion now, as though they knew she carried something dangerous. Others avoided her gaze entirely, and then, in the corner of the hall, she saw something that froze her blood. Two brides whispering together, their eyes fixed on her. They weren't afraid. They were plotting. Later, as she returned to her room, she heard them through the corridor. Their voices were soft but urgent. She is not like us, one hissed. The commander favors her, the other replied. If she stays, she will destroy everything. Her steps faltered. Even among the brides, she was alone. That night, the commander came to her again. He dismissed the guards and entered her room, his face hard with urgency. They are watching you, he said. The council suspects, the soldiers whisper. Even the brides turn against you. Her voice trembled. Then I am finished. No, he said sharply. Not if you stand with me. Her eyes widened. Stand with you? Against them? Stepped closer, his presence filling the small room. His eyes burned with a fire she had not seen before. I cannot fight this alone. The council's grip grows tighter every day. But if we move carefully, if we strike where they do not expect, we can break the chains that bind us. Her hands shook. The thought was terrifying. To rise against the council, against the very power that ruled both humans and her people, it was madness. And yet, something inside her stirred. A flame she had tried to bury under fear now flickered brighter. She whispered, "What if we fail?" His voice was steady, unflinching. Then we fall. But if we do nothing, we are already lost. Silence filled the room, heavy and sharp. Liora's heart raced. She looked into his eyes and saw no lies there. Hidden fears. The door of the chamber opened, and Liora was led to her new quarters inside the colony. The corridors stretched endlessly, lined with steel walls and humming lights. Every step echoed as if the walls themselves were listening. The soldiers who escorted her did not speak. Their eyes were sharp, watching her like hunters watching prey. At last, she was shown to a small room. It was nothing like the warm homes of her people. The walls were bare metal, the floor cold under her feet, and the air heavy with the smell of iron. There was a single bed, a table, and nothing more. The door locked from the outside with a sharp click. She stood in silence, her heart pounding. She was alone now, yet not free. The colony felt like a prison dressed as a home. Her thoughts drifted to her sister. This was supposed to be her fate, but she had taken her place. She had thought she was saving her family's honor, but what had she really done? She had walked into a trap, into a cage built of steel and silence. That night, she could not sleep. The thin blanket offered no comfort. Every sound in the corridor kept her awake. The distant march of boots, the mechanical hiss of doors, the hum of machines. Her mind repeated the same question again and again. Why did the commander choose me? She remembered the way his eyes had lingered on her, sharp and searching. He had seen something. But what? Did he know the truth? The days that followed only deepened her unease. She was not treated like the others. The other brides stayed together in the common hall, watched closely but left to whisper among themselves. Liora, however, was kept apart. She was brought meals separately, escorted everywhere by guards, and kept under constant watch. The soldiers. Glances told her what their lips did not. Suspicion, curiosity, even anger. Some looked at her as if she had stolen a place that was not hers. Others looked as if they feared her. One evening, as she returned to her room, she heard 2 soldiers whispering outside her door. She pressed her ear to the metal wall. "Why, her?" one asked. His voice was low, filled with doubt. He ignored the others. "He chose her. She is not special," the other replied bitterly. "She hides something. I can feel it. And the commander, he never makes random choices. He must know something about her." Their voices faded as they walked away, but the words sank into Liora's chest. "They suspect me." Her hands shook. If they discovered the truth, that she was not meant to be here, what would they do? Would they send her back? Or worse, would they punish her for deceiving them? The next day, the commander himself appeared at her door. The guard stood aside as he entered. His presence filled the small room, making the air heavier. He looked around the room, then at her. "You are afraid," he said flatly. She lowered her eyes, trying to hide the storm inside her. "This place is not my home." "No," he agreed. "It is not. But fear will not keep you alive here. Strength will." His words struck her. For a moment, she almost believed there was concern in his tone, but his face remained hard, unreadable. "Why do you keep me separate?" she dared to ask. Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. The commander's eyes narrowed slightly. He stepped closer, his gaze locked on hers. "Because you are not like them." Her breath caught. The walls seemed to close in around her. Did he know? Before she could speak, he turned and walked to the door. "Stay quiet, watch, listen. In time you will understand why you are here." And then he was gone, leaving her more confused than before. That night, Liora sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the locked door. Fear crept into her veins, deeper than ever. She felt trapped between 2 dangers, the truth she carried, and the commander who seemed to see through her silence. She closed her eyes, but her mind refused rest. The whispers of the soldiers, the weight of the commander's stare, the cold steel walls all pressed down on her. And then, just as sleep finally began to pull her under, a voice broke through the silence. It was faint, almost a whisper through the vent in the wall. "You should not trust him." Her eyes flew open. She sat up quickly, her breath sharp. The voice was gone, swallowed by the hum of machines. Had she imagined it? Or was someone truly warning her? Either way, her heart pounded, with a new terror. If the commander was not her enemy, then who inside these walls was? Secrets of the commander. The warning voice from the vent haunted Liora. Each time she closed her eyes, the words whispered again in her mind. You should not trust him. She did not know if it was real or her imagination, but the fear it planted stayed alive in her chest. Days passed, and the routine of the colony wrapped around her like cold chains. Soldiers moved with machine-like discipline. The halls echoed with boots and orders, and the brides whispered nervously in corners. Yet she remained apart. Wherever she went, she felt the commander's presence, unseen but near, like a shadow that refused to leave. One evening, a soldier arrived at her door. "The commander calls you." His voice was flat, giving no room for questions. Liora's heart sank. She followed him through endless corridors until she reached a tall steel door. It opened with a hiss, revealing a darker, quieter part of the colony. The air here was heavy, filled with the hum of machines buried deep in the walls. The commander was waiting. He dismissed the soldier and gestured for her to follow. Without a word, he led her down a narrow passage. The walls here were different, older, marked with scratches and strange symbols half erased by time. She wondered how many secrets these halls had swallowed. At last they stopped before another sealed door. The commander placed his hand on a scanner, and the door slid open. Cold air rushed out, carrying the scent of dust and something older, something hidden. Inside was a chamber unlike anything she had seen before. It was dimly lit, filled with machines humming quietly, their lights blinking in slow rhythm. Maps and strange star charts covered the walls. In the center stood a console glowing, with shifting patterns. Liora stepped inside slowly, her eyes wide. "What is this place?" The commander's voice was calm but heavy. "A place no one else is allowed to see." Her heart pounded. Why had he brought her here? He walked to the console and touched the surface. Images flickered to life. Galaxies, planets, colonies spread across the stars. She saw her world marked on the chart, small and fragile, surrounded by human lines of control. "This colony," he said, his voice sharp with authority, "is not built for peace. It is built for power." His words struck her like thunder. The truth was louder than the machines humming in the room. "Marriages between humans and your kind," he continued, "are not about unity. They are about control. A bride is not chosen for love, but to bind her people, to break resistance, to make sure no one dares to rise against us." Liora's breath caught. The truth she had feared was spoken aloud at last. Her sister had known. That was why she had refused. And now Liora stood here, chained to a fate that was never meant to be hers. She whispered, "Then why me?" For the first time, the commander's face softened. He looked at her not with authority, but with something else, something harder to name. "Because you are not like the others. They obey without thought. You one question. You hide something, and yet you stand tall. That makes you dangerous. And it makes you useful." Her chest tightened. Dangerous. Useful. Words that sounded like both curse and weapon. She took a step back. "You brought me here to trap me." "No." His voice was firm, echoing in the chamber. "I brought you here because you need to understand. If you survive here, you must know the truth." She stared at him, torn between fear and a strange spark of defiance. "And what do you gain by telling me this?" The commander's jaw tightened. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his eyes darkened and his voice dropped low. "Because I, too, am trapped." The words hung in the air, heavier than steel. Liora's heart raced. Could it be true? This man, the one who commanded soldiers and ruled the colony with fear, was he also a prisoner? She searched his face for a sign, but his expression was unreadable again. The mask of authority returned, covering the crack she had just glimpsed. He turned away and touched the console. The maps flickered and vanished into darkness. "You will tell no one of this place," he ordered. Her voice trembled. "And if I do?" His eyes met hers, sharp as a blade. "Then you will not live to regret it." Fear gripped her, but beneath it another feeling burned, curiosity. He had shown her what others could not see. He had given her a secret, and with it a power she did not understand. As he led her out of the hidden chamber, Liora's mind swirled with questions. Was the warning voice in the vent right? Could she trust him? Or was he only using her for a game she could not see? The door sealed shut behind them, erasing the chamber as if it had never existed. But the secrets inside it had already changed everything. The silent exchange. The night sky above the alien city was heavy with stars, but her heart carried only fear. She walked in silence, covered in the long veil that hid her face. Everyone thought she was her sister, but the truth was different. Her sister had refused this marriage, and now she had taken her place. One step after another, she followed the guards who would take her to the human colony. Her name was Liora, but nobody here would call her that. To the humans, she was just another bride sent to seal peace between two worlds. The thought burned inside her. She wanted to run, but it was too late. If she turned back now, her family would be shamed, and her sister's refusal would be exposed. She had no choice but to move forward. The air changed as she entered the transport. Cold, metallic, and heavy with silence. The soldiers in human armor stood tall, their eyes like steel. They did not speak to her. They only pointed where she should sit. She obeyed, her hands trembling beneath her veil. She had never been this close to humans before. Their presence felt dangerous, like standing near fire. The journey felt endless. Liora kept her eyes low, but she could feel their stares. They did not see her as a person, just as an offering. Her heart pounded louder with every moment. She wanted to scream that she was not supposed to be here, that she was not the one chosen. But the words never left her lips. Finally, the ship landed. A hiss of air, a sharp clang of metal, and the doors opened. The human colony stood before her, tall, walls of iron, bright lights cutting through the darkness and soldiers marching with perfect order. It was not a place of love. It was a fortress. She stepped out, her feet heavy on the cold ground. A line of other brides walked beside her, each wrapped in silence, each pretending to be brave. None of them dared to speak. The colony gates opened, and they were led inside like shadows. The hall where they stopped was vast, echoing with every footstep. At the far end stood the commander. His presence was sharp and commanding even from a distance. His uniform was spotless, his shoulders strong, and his eyes cold as he studied the line of brides. Liora kept her head down, but she felt his gaze moving across the room, one bride at a time. When his eyes finally reached her, her breath caught. She felt it. His attention lingered longer than it should have. She did not know why, but his stare pressed on her like a weight. Her fingers curled tightly around the edge of her veil. She wanted to disappear, but something inside her whispered, "He knows." The commander walked slowly down the line. His boots struck the floor in steady rhythm, each step echoing in her chest. The other brides stiffened as he passed, their bodies shaking with fear. But when he stopped in front of Liora, the silence grew heavier. He did not speak at first. His eyes searched her, studying her hidden face as if he could see through the veil. Then in a low voice he asked, "What is your name?" Her throat dried. No one had told her what to say. She had been warned never to reveal her true self. After a long pause, she whispered, "Liora." The sound of her own name felt dangerous. The commander's eyes narrowed. For a moment, she thought he would expose her, call her a liar, and send her away. But instead something strange flickered across his face. Curiosity or perhaps recognition. He stepped back and continued walking down the line, but the air between them had already changed. Liora's chest rose and fell quickly, her heart racing, faster than before. Why had he stopped at her? Why had he asked her name and not the others? The inspection ended. The brides were ordered to wait in silence. Soldiers whispered among themselves, their glances sharp and full of secrets. Liora felt the weight of every eye in the hall pressing against her. Then the commander's voice rang out, firm and final. Her. Every head turned. He was pointing at Liora. The sound of her own heartbeat thundered in her ears. She froze where she stood. The soldiers moved at once, separating her from the others. She wanted to protest, to tell them it was a mistake, that she was not supposed to be chosen. But the words died inside her mouth. The commander's eyes stayed on her, calm and unreadable. He had chosen her. Out of all the brides, he had chosen the one who was not even meant to be there. The hall grew colder. The silence deepened. And in that moment, Liora understood one thing. Her life would never belong to her again. The commander's decision. The echo of the commander's voice still rang in her ears. Her. The word had cut through the hall like a blade, changing everything in a single breath. The other brides lowered their heads, relieved that his attention had not fallen on them. Some even exchanged glances, whispers passing in silence through their eyes. But for Liora there was no relief, only fear. Her steps were unsteady as two soldiers moved closer. guiding her out of the line. She wanted to resist. She wanted to cry out, "I'm not supposed to be here, I'm not the one you want." But the words locked in her throat. If she spoke the truth, her sister's secret would be revealed. If she stayed silent, she would lose herself. The commander stood tall at the front of the hall, his hands behind his back, his face unreadable. He waited as Liora was brought before him. The silence stretched, filling the vast chamber with pressure. She could hear the distant hum of machines, the steady breath of soldiers, the heavy sound of her own heartbeat. When she finally dared to raise her eyes, his gaze was already fixed on her. Cold, sharp, and curious. It was not the look of a man who had chosen a bride out of duty. It was the look of someone searching for an answer. "Remove the veil," he commanded. Her hands froze. She could not. If she revealed her face, he might see the truth, see the fear written in her eyes. But the soldier stepped forward, waiting for her to obey. Slowly, trembling, she lifted the veil away. The fabric slipped down and the world seemed to pause. Her face, pale with fear, met his stare. For a moment, the commander did not move. His expression hardened, but his eyes told another story. There was a flicker of recognition, as though he saw something in her that no one else could. "This one," he said firmly. The words sealed her fate. The brides behind her shifted uncomfortably. Some bit their lips, others turned away. None dared to question his decision, but the air was thick with unease. Even the soldiers seemed surprised, exchanging quiet looks as if they too wondered why he had chosen her. "Take her," the commander ordered. 2 guards stepped forward, but then he raised his hand to stop them. His voice carried authority, steady and unchallenged. "No, I will escort her myself." The hall fell silent. Soldiers stiffened at his words. It was not common for the commander to personally involve himself with the brides, yet no one dared to speak against him. He stepped down from the platform, his boots striking the metal floor with a slow, deliberate rhythm. His presence filled the space, heavy and commanding. Liora's heart pounded as he stopped just inches from her. "What is your name?" he asked again, this time with quiet intensity. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She could not lie again. She could not tell the truth either. After a pause, she whispered, "Liora." The commander studied her face for a long moment. His jaw tightened, but his eyes did not leave hers. There was something unreadable in his expression, something deeper than authority. Then he gave a small nod, as if he had confirmed something, only he understood. Without another word, he turned and began walking. "Follow me." The soldiers stepped aside instantly, clearing a path. Liora hesitated for just a breath before her feet carried her after him. Each step echoed louder than the last. He led her out of the hall, through long steel corridors that smelled of oil and iron. The walls were lined with lights that hummed softly, casting a pale glow on her trembling shadow. She tried to keep her head down, but she could feel the stares of soldiers they passed. Some were curious, others cold, but all of them silent. The commander did not speak until they reached a smaller chamber. The door slid shut behind them, sealing her in with him. The space was stark, just a table, 2 chairs, and the soft buzz of lights. He turned to face her, his sharp features shadowed by the glow. "Why are you here?" The question struck her like thunder. Her breath caught, her body stiffened. Did he already know? Could he see through her disguise? She forced herself to answer carefully. "I came as my people sent me, for peace." His eyes narrowed. Peace. The word left his lips like a challenge, cold and doubtful. He stepped closer, his voice dropping lower. "You are not like the others. They tremble, they bow, they hide. You hide something else. What is it?" Her pulse raced. She could not reveal the truth, but she could not stay silent either. "I am only afraid." The commander studied her, his gaze deep and piercing. Then, unexpectedly, he leaned back, crossing his arms. A faint smile, almost invisible, touched the corner of his lips. "Fear," he said. "Yes, but not the Kind I expected. His words wrapped around her like chains. He had chosen her and he would not let her go. At that moment, Liora realized something terrifying. The commander had not chosen her by chance. He had chosen her because he had seen, through her silence. He had seen something in her that she herself did not yet understand, and now she belonged to him.